Hey, Paul and everybody else. I am about to read the Dasher story out of Aracely and Other Stories for the second time because my first reading, I'm afraid, was a little bit rushed and I didn't enunciate some of my words very well. And I'm afraid that some people might not have understood me as well as I would have liked. Even I didn't understand my own reading sometimes when I listened to it. And I want to do a much better job, so I want to read a lot more slowly and hopefully be able to communicate this read to you all a lot better. So with that in mind, here I go. She didn't speak at all when first given the news. Metaphorically, her heart sank, and the muscles in her neck tightened. Both hands gripped the messenger's upper arms. He suspected she wanted to kill the messenger. Yet her grip relaxed, and she closed her baby blue eyes and put her hands to her face. He, of course, hugged her to offer comfort, and she accepted it passively. The dog sniffed at his feet and looked up at his master in the messenger's arms. Sorry was the only appropriate word. Tragic news depressed all, even when the facts concerned mainly the hearer. Mike released his hold, stepping back, a rush of uncomfortable helplessness, passing up and down his entire body. Miss Coco looked frail, thinner than ever before, and dropped her hands from her pale face, looking rather intently at the dog. Still, she didn't speak. It's for the best, I'm sure, Mike said, wishing he hadn't. But rather than slap him, she smiled, staring now at him, her blue eyes painful wet orbs that closed immediately. She knelt beside the tiny white dog and said at last, Peppy, Dasher is gone for good. She picked up her confused mutt, stood, smiled again at Mike, said, Thank you, walked to the chair and sat. It's all right, she whispered to Peppy. We'll be fine. I love you. The dog licked her, looked at Mike, and squirmed in his master's lap. Mike wanted to leave, but yet, she may need something, if only his presence. When a moment passed and she remained silent, he stepped backward again. Guess I'll go. You gonna be okay? She nodded, petting the white dog. Don't want me to get you a drink or something from the store? She merely shook her head, so he stepped back again, touching the door with his fingers. Miss Coco wasn't breathing hard. She wasn't crying anymore. Her head rested on the top edge of the chair. When Mike turned to go, the dog jumped from her lap to send him off. Mike stooped to pet him and went out, closing the door. She weathered it fairly well. Miss Coco buried her dog in the yard, illegally, and resorted more often than usual to her office. Mike kept out of her way as much as he could. His room was on the second floor. The only other renter worked long hours, came in quite late, and used the kitchen infrequently. Miss Coco had once told him the gentleman had a good job and was, in her words, salting it away. Mike rarely saw him. He hoped someday he, too, would have a good job and salt it away, go on vacation in Hawaii, and fall in love with a sexy hula dancer. For now, he wrote his novel and studied his correspondence course, psychology. He mailed in the assignments. But, naturally, murder was in his heart. The dog killer lived down the street, a few houses away. Mike walked past the place on his way to the grocery store, gritting his teeth and planning a method to kill him. The man was free, had escaped prosecution, had lied to the police, had resumed his odious existence like nothing had happened. like he'd not shot a harmless cocker spaniel in his backyard with a rifle. Didn't know what it was. Thought maybe it was a burglar. Been burgled before. Made a police report last year. You look and see. Mike had heard him tell the police. Miss Coco drank brandy by the fireplace in the lounge at night. Mike heard her talking on the telephone to her sister and changing the television channels. His novel took a nasty turn, the lead character breaking up with his girlfriend, quitting college, and joining the army. But Mike didn't know how to write about army life, so he stole some things out of From Here to Eternity. The killer lived peaceably, free, down the street. One day, Mike told himself, one day I'll get you. That loving dog, friendly to everyone in this neighborhood. But the man in the house had chased him twice from his front yard, yelling and screaming. That Mike had witnessed from his window. There was no question the man had shot Dasher on purpose, fully aware of who the dog was. Miss Coco wouldn't believe it, but she was a sweet, middle-aged landlady. Mike saw it differently. And the dog had suffered for days before succumbing. Then an idea hit with tidal wave energy. Bash him on the head from behind, run away, hide the rock, sneak to my room, wash my hands, get into bed, let someone find the dog killer dead. It could never be connected to him. Miss Coco surely wouldn't be blamed. The creep probably had made enemies in his past. The cops would never solve it. No one would care in the least. The dog killer went to a bar a few blocks away, a few nights a week. Mike would wait in the bushes, jump out after he passed by on the sidewalk, pop him on the head with great force, and run. Normally their side street was empty that time of night. He picked his night. He'd sent off the last correspondence lesson. Only the final examination remained. There would be less stress that way. Saturday night was too busy, so Mike chose a weeknight, Thursday night. He'd seen the murderer go to the bar on many Thursdays. He slipped out by the rear stairs. It was after midnight. He got the rock he'd selected from behind the lemon trees, walked secretly around a couple of homes, stationed himself in the bushes near the sidewalk, and waited. Sweat sprang uncontrollably from his pores, and his breathing was rapid. He calmed himself by visualizing the beach. Only 3 or 4 cars went by in perhaps 20 minutes. His throat was dry, and Mike wished he'd brought water. Had he really been in the army, he'd have prepared for this. But, of course, a water bottle was one more loose item to think about. Cops are smart, except they believed the dog killer's phony excuse. Finally, the murderer's steps could be heard at the end of the street. They proceeded toward Mike's hideout. The rock felt good in his hands. He shifted it to his right one, braced himself, making sure the dog killer couldn't see him. The murderer passed by. Mike inched forward. He crouched at the edge of the bushes. He sprang onto the sidewalk. He stepped silently, in tennis shoes, to the man. He raised the rock. He moved closer to strike. The problem was, unfortunately, he couldn't do it. His arm froze in midair. His sneaking run stopped. The man kept walking. The chance had passed. Blood rushed, pulsed, in Mike's head like Niagara Falls. Damn! He wanted to throw the rock at the man's head, the murderer's head, but he didn't. He wanted to yell a profanity, but he didn't. The man walked on. Mike could run after him, probably bash his head in, even now, but he didn't. He returned to his room after discarding the useless rock and washed his hands. Mike sat on his bed, and felt how sticky and wet his shirt was. And he knew he could never do it. There was a difference between him and a dog killer. All right, so hopefully I did this story justice this time around. Hopefully I read it slowly enough for you all to understand me a lot better. Probably made this video a little bit longer, but if that's the case, then so be it. So remember, everybody, purchase this book from Amazon as well as Paul Lemaitre's other books. They are really great books to read, very interesting and very intriguing. And this is my last reading for now until Paul perhaps writes another book. Then in that case, I will be doing another reading. But in the meantime, I'd like to give other people a chance to do their own readings and do their own video recordings. For example, Jerry and Russ have done excellent readings from Paul's books. And I really hope to hear more from them because I enjoy hearing their readings. It's nice to hear other people's readings besides my own. So that's my take on that. And I hope you all do too. Nice to hear everybody's interpretations of these stories. So anyway, hope you enjoyed this and hope I made myself better understood this time. And today is Wednesday. Happy Hump Day. I am about to go out and do some grocery shopping. So hope you all have a wonderful day. See you. Take care.